All right, today we are going to unpack an absolutely incredible business story. It's all about being in the right place at the exact right time with the perfect product. Let's dive in.
So just imagine this for a second. It's 2021. The world is in total chaos, and one company's profits don't just grow, they literally launch into orbit. We're talking a mind-blowing jump of over 170% in just 12 months. So the big question is, how? How is that even possible?
Well, the answer is surprisingly simple. It wasn't some flashy new tech gadget or revolutionary piece of software. Nope, it was this: ceramic, hand-shaped molds. The kind you need to make the billions, and I mean billions, of medical gloves the world was suddenly desperate for. And this brings us to the quiet, kind of unsung engine behind this whole story. We're talking about a company that makes a component so critical, but so often overlooked, that it became one of the most important pieces of the entire global healthcare supply chain puzzle. So let me introduce you to PT Mark Dynamics Indonesia. And look, they weren't some startup that just got lucky. Even before 2020, these guys were an absolute powerhouse, controlling almost a third of the entire global market for these porcelain molds. They were already a big deal, and they were about to get a whole lot bigger. To really get why this explosion happened, you have to look at what they were doing before the boom. This wasn't a story of overnight success, not at all. It was a story of methodical, really smart, strategic growth that perfectly positioned them for what was coming next.
Their strategy was really about growth. I mean, just look at these numbers. They went from making 60,000 units a month back in 2006 to more than 10 times that by 2019. Year after year, they were just consistently reinvesting, expanding their capacity. They were building the factory for a future they couldn't have even predicted.
And get this, they weren't just a local player. By 2018, almost all of their business, we're talking over 93%, was international. They had already built this massive global network, supplying the world's biggest glove manufacturers long before the word pandemic was on everybody's lips.
Okay, now let's talk about the moment everything changed. The pandemic hits, and all of a sudden, their very specific, very niche product becomes one of the most in-demand manufactured goods on the entire planet. This wasn't just a wave of demand. It was a full-on tsunami, and they were ready to ride it.
And the numbers from their peak year in 2021 are just insane. First up, revenue more than doubled. It jumped over 111%.
But okay, sales are one thing. Profitability, it went through the roof. Net profits skyrocketed, an almost unbelievable 172%.
And for investors, that meant the value they created was just immense, with earnings per share growing right alongside it. This is what a rocket ship launch looks like on a financial statement.
To put that profit jump into perspective for you, in 2020, they made a very healthy 144 billion rupiah. A single year later, that number shot up to 392 billion. They nearly tripled their net profit in 1 year. Wow.
So, how did the company itself talk about this time? Well, their theme for the 2021 annual report really said it all: solid performance for better future. They knew this was a historic moment, but they were already looking ahead, framing this massive windfall as the foundation for whatever was coming next. But what happens when the rocket ship returns to Earth? I mean, that historic, insane demand couldn't last forever, right? Which brings us to the next chapter of the story: navigating life after the peak.
So yeah, inevitably, the market corrected. As global demand for gloves started to normalize, so did their revenue. From that peak of almost 1.2 trillion rupiah, it settled back down to around 559 billion by 2023. Now, this wasn't a crash. It was just a return to a new, more sustainable normal.
So how did they react? Did they panic? Nope. They shifted their strategy. Instead of focusing on pure expansion, the focus became much sharper, managing their capital, innovating the product, driving efficiency, and really doubling down on their ESG. That's environmental, social, and governance initiatives.
And this strategic pivot leads us to our final section. How do you build a truly sustainable future? How do you turn a once-in-a-lifetime windfall into durable, long-term corporate strength?
Well, the proof is right there in the results. Their focus on efficiency and innovation totally paid off. In 2024, they staged this incredible rebound, with net profits surging by over 83% from the year before. It just showed that the company's real strength wasn't just about massive demand, it was about smart management.
And underpinning all of this resilience is a real commitment to the fundamentals. Their corporate governance, it's built on this solid foundation of transparency, accountability, and responsibility.
That's all key for long-term trust and stability.
So what does their path forward look like now? They're definitely not resting. The plan is crystal clear. Keep strengthening their core export markets, pour resources into R&D, find every little production efficiency they can, and continue to weave sustainability like carbon reduction into their everyday operations.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This company's story really shows that navigating the boom is only half the challenge. True, lasting strength isn't just about how high you can fly during the storm, but about how well you can sail when the waters are finally calm again.